Hello, my name is McKinley Carden, and I did my inquiry on skills-based computer programs in the classroom. This semester, I worked at a school called Joyce Bullock Elementary. It was in a rural town in Williston, Florida. I worked in a second grade classroom run by Miss Martin. I noticed that the students were participating in a program called Extra Math. The point of this program was to increase students' mathematical fluency. I had already seen programs like this in past practicums I had been placed in. For example, last semester, when I was in Idlewild Elementary School in a kindergarten classroom, these students participated in a computer program such as this Extra Math. However, the only difference was their focus was more on language arts and reading fluency, not mathematical fluency. But I had noticed that since I have been in elementary school, as I'm sure is the same with all of you, technology has taken a larger role. These programs were not available to my school, so this was my inquiry. I was wondering, how could I use skills-based computer programs to increase students' mathematical fluency? I felt this was important because it will enhance my ability in my professional career to allow me to access current programs to use to increase my future students' math fluency. I do not know a lot about these programs because I did not grow up on them, so I thought it was important that I study these. Not only study these, but study the opinions of current teachers along with the students. I feel that sometimes we forget about the students and their opinions, but they can be very much as valuable as our own. For my preliminary data collection, I interviewed the students in Miss Martin's classroom along with Miss Martin and got both of their opinions of the program. I also used a very helpful assessment that the Extra Math had constructed for the teachers. The basis of this assessment was it would show how each student did in that individual week, and it also showed how well they have progressed. This was very helpful because when I was talking to Miss Martin, I had asked her what she thought of the program along with if she thought it was helpful. She let me look at the assessment, and I found that 5 students in the classroom of 19 had increased their mathematical fluency using the Extra Math program. However, 10 had only slightly increased, and 4 students were not affected at all. My findings, I also researched the program Extra Math along with a program Ms. Martin had used in the past. I had further inquired about this program called Moby Math. She told me it was of much better help than the current program. I therefore inquired why she had switched. She told me that it was not her choice of what program they used in the classroom. It was the school's, which I found interesting because in my original inquiry, I was looking for what programs I can use because I was under the assumption that I got to choose. However, the school funds these math programs. The reason why they switched from Moby Math to Extra Math was that Extra Math was free, and since they had to pay for Moby Math, they no longer wanted to do that. I then asked her opinion about the Extra Math. She told me that it was helpful, but to really increase the students' mathematical fluency, the program could not be used alone. Students would also have to work on their fluency at home to make sufficient gains in their fluency capabilities. Therefore, students can't just practice their math facts in class. They also have to practice their math facts at home. The difference between Extra Math and the past program used in was Moby Math. Moby Math had games. And I have found that when I looked at programs at Idlewild, they had lots of games for these kindergartners, and I found that their motivation to complete these games and really pay attention to the instructions, they were learning so much more because they weren't realizing this was just repetition and they were learning. Because this extra math, the program only revolves around repetition of math facts. The program gives the students a math problem. For example, 5 plus 5. The student must answer the problem as soon as possible. Once they have typed in the correct answer, the program will then display a new problem. About 20 problems are done in each section. The program also does subtraction. While the program does provide teachers with an assessment, it is very helpful when viewing student work, but it is clear that it is not helping all the students. After interviewing the teacher and seeing the assessments, I then interviewed the students. I found that 14 students liked doing the program and 5 did not. Upon further inquiry, I found that only 5 liked the program. The rest of the 14 students only liked it because they got to use the computer. 3 of the 5 who didn't like the computer program were doing poorly in it. Therefore, I made the assumption that they didn't like it because they weren't doing great in it. The remaining 2 just preferred practicing their math facts on paper. I then researched another program that is one of the top in the country called Fast Math. The difference between Fast Math and Moby Math and Extra Math is Fast Math is student specific. They give a pre-test and they find out where the student's weaknesses are. Therefore, they can focus on these weaknesses. So rather than as a whole, they can practice what they need to practice. Moby Math, and especially Extra Math, does not have this. My implications for practice as a teacher: I must not rely solely on skills-based computer programs to increase students' mathematical fluency. It can be used in my classroom, but I must also make sure students are working on increasing their fluency at home and in other ways. Relying on programs like this will not be sufficient enough. There were 3 other findings I came to. The first: there are skills-based computer programs that are more effective in increasing students' mathematical fluency compared to others. As I was started in the beginning, I had a feeling that some would be more effective than others. 2 findings I came to that I was not expecting were: 1, not all students enjoyed using the skills-based computer programs to practice their math facts. I had just assumed, since all the students were participating in the program, that they enjoyed it, which is why I'm glad I interviewed the students and got their opinions. The third one I came to that I was not expecting was: it is not guaranteed that I will be able to choose the skills-based computer program I will use in my classroom. I'd expected that I needed to research all these programs because I was going to have to choose. But as I learned while doing my research, and for example in Miss Martin's class, I may not have the choice. So my wondering changed a bit after I had finished the program. My wondering changed because I was focusing on how I would use these skills-based computer programs in the classroom. But I now wonder if I will have the choice. And if I do not have the choice like Ms. Martin, how can I use a program that seems to not be of much effect like Extra Math? Can I find activities that can correlate with the program? Or do I need to supply a whole new resource for practicing math facts? This inquiry overall was very helpful. Since I was not using these programs when I was in elementary school, I really didn't know much about them. Through my research, I have found out so much more. This has been very helpful. And I think although I wasn't looking for the finding in the beginning, I think my final finding of that I will not be guaranteed that I will be able to choose the skills-based computer program I will use in my classroom was of very importance, because now I have to prepare to choose a skills-based computer program, but I must also be prepared for the predicament that I won't get to choose at all, and I will just be handed a math program and say, use this in the classroom, you have to use it. And if it is ineffective, like extra math, then I have to prepare myself to find new resources. Overall, this inquiry was very informative, and I'm very glad I participated in it. Thank you for listening.